Welcome to Tech Talk, Hawaii Preparatory Academy's K-8 podcast. In each episode, we dive into a tech-related topic that is important to parents of young learners.
So, if you spend just 45 minutes a day, mindlessly scrolling, you will lose a staggering 11 full days of your life this year, just to a glowing rectangle.
Yeah, and let's be honest, chances are you were spending a lot more than 45 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you sit down on the couch to check the weather and a time dilation effect takes over. Suddenly an hour has completely vanished.
Right.
And you're left with no idea what the weather is and just this heavy, sinking feeling of screen time guilt.
Which is the worst feeling.
It really is. So today we are targeting that exact cycle of distraction and guilt. Welcome to the show, everyone. We are doing a deep dive into a really fascinating stack of sources.
Yeah, I've got some great research notes, a framework document, and excerpts from this interactive website.
Exactly. And it's all focused on Corbin Doak's P.A.U.S.E framework. So our mission for you today is to basically decode the mechanics of your own digital habits. We want to figure out how to model better ones, particularly if there are kids around.
Because they are definitely watching.
Always. Okay, let's unpack this, because this isn't about fleeing into the woods and throwing your devices into the ocean.
No, far from it. We really have to start by establishing the critical difference between a digital detox and what the sources call digital hygiene.
Right, which are very different things.
Completely. A detox is essentially the crash diet of the tech world. You lock your smartphone in a drawer, you head to a cabin for the weekend, and you experience this temporary illusion of purity.
Right, but the very word detox kind of implies a temporary state, right? You inevitably return from it.
Exactly. Hygiene, on the other hand, is a daily, sustainable practice. It's routine maintenance for your attention span, built right into the architecture of your everyday life.
I love that crash diet analogy. I mean, it holds up so well. You restrict yourself completely, you rely purely on willpower, and by day 8, you're binging because the underlying environment hasn't changed at all.
Yeah, you bounce right back to the bad habits.
Right. So digital hygiene is more like, it's like brushing your teeth. It's a non-negotiable daily structural habit. But to build that hygiene, we first have to recognize why the willpower approach fails so miserably against these devices.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here is the sheer asymmetry of the battle. We tend to view our inability to put the phone down as, a moral failure.
Oh, totally. A lack of discipline.
Right. But the sources point out that you are bringing basic human biology to a fight against meticulously engineered software.
Wow. Yeah, that's entirely unfair.
It is. Algorithms are designed by world-class engineers using variable reward schedules. They don't just give you something interesting every time you pull to refresh. They give you something interesting sometimes.
Which is the slot machine effect.
Exactly. That unpredictability mimics the psychology of a slot machine. It spikes dopamine in anticipation of the reward, and it completely bypasses your logical brain. It hooks directly into your basal ganglia, which governs automatic habits.
So your conscious mind is literally outgunned by the variable reward schedule.
Completely outgunned.
Wow. So you have to fundamentally change the environment before the conscious mind even has to make a choice. And the framework calls this is the P in P.A.U.S.E, planning your friction.
Yes, plan your friction.
You have to introduce intentional physical barriers into your environment, because relying on willpower to not look at your phone when it's in your pocket is it's like sleeping with a box of donuts on your nightstand.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Right. If it's literally one tap away, you will consume it before your conscious mind even registers what you're doing. But if you add friction, you buy your prefrontal cortex a crucial fraction of a second to step in and say, wait, no?
Yeah, to override that automatic habit loop, because the path of least resistance is the absolute enemy of intentionality.
So how do we actually do that? What are the actionable strategies here?
Well, the sources suggest several highly actionable ways. One of the primary recommendations is establishing an out-of-sight rule.
Okay, an out-of-sight rule.
Right. This involves setting up a designated charging dock. They call it a home base. And it has to be explicitly located away from high-traffic family zones.
So, not the kitchen counter.
No, not the kitchen counter, not the coffee table. You put it in a hallway or a secondary room. Because if the device isn't a physical weight in your pocket, the ambient subconscious urge to reach for it drops significantly.
Just because the physical proximity trigger is gone.
Exactly.
But, I mean, practically speaking, isn't that incredibly anxiety-inducing for most people? Like, if I leave my phone on a hallway charger, my brain is going to be hyper-fixated on phantom vibrations.
Oh, yeah. You're waiting for it to buzz.
Right. I'd be constantly wondering what urgent message or email I'm missing. So that friction almost feels like it creates more distraction internally.
And that anxiety is a totally recognized phase of the process. But it's vital to understand what it actually is. It's a withdrawal symptom.
Wait, really? A literal withdrawal symptom?
Yes. Your brain is anticipating a dopamine hit and experiencing distress when the habitual pathway to get it is blocked. But neuroplasticity works in both directions.
Meaning your brain can adapt back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you consistently maintain the physical distance, that heightened cortisol response, that anxiety of missing out, it begins to downregulate within a few days. The brain just learns that the hallway charger is a dead zone for immediate reward, and the hyperfixation fades.
Wow. Which brings up the visual triggers, not just the physical ones. I want to talk about the interactive source because it mentions the grayscale test, and the mechanism behind it is incredible.
Oh, the grayscale test is a game changer.
It really is. Social media apps heavily utilize highly saturated colors, particularly bright reds for notification badges and vibrant blues. And this isn't an aesthetic choice, right? It's a biological hack.
Totally biological.
Right. Our visual salience network evolved to spot ripe, brightly colored fruit against a backdrop of green foliage. So app developers are literally hijacking our primal foraging instincts.
Precisely. Those colors act as visual salience cues that send an immediate signal to the optic nerve to release dopamine.
Right.
But if you dive into your phone's accessibility settings and switch the display to monochrome, just plain grayscale, you neutralize that salience network.
I tried it this morning, and the difference is jarring.
Isn't it?
Yeah, you look at a social feed in black and white, and the biological reward is instantly stripped away. Your brain stops perceiving the screen as a high-reward environment and just starts seeing it as a functional tool. It just looks boring.
It completely deflates the structural appeal of the interface. But of course, friction only works when we are in a controlled environment, like our homes.
Right. What happens when we go to work?
Exactly. What happens when we are forced to carry our devices into the office or when we sit down at the dining room table? We can't navigate the modern world with our phones permanently locked in a hallway.
Yeah, that's not realistic.
No. So we have to shift from physical barriers to temporal and spatial ones.
Which brings us to the P.A.U.S.E, right? Anchoring.
Yes, anchor.
Meaning we establish hard, non-negotiable boundaries around specific device-free zones and device-free times. So the dining table is the primary special anchor. The sources really emphasize that meals must be protected for face-to-face connection.
And parents have to model that first. You can't just tell the kids no phones and then check your email.
Exactly. But the temporal anchors are just as critical, specifically what the framework calls the first and last hour.
Oh, this is huge.
You cannot let a screen be the last thing you interact with before sleep or the first thing you grab when you wake up.
The underlying biology of the first and last hour is profoundly important. When you look at a glowing rectangle in bed, you are exposing your eyes to blue light.
Right, which messes with sleep.
Right, specifically in the 400 to 490 nanometer range. This light hits the retinal cells in your eyes, which send a direct signal to your pineal gland to halt the production of melatonin.
Wow.
Yeah, evolutionary biology did not prepare us for the sun to effectively rise 2 inches from our face at 11:30 p.m.
Yeah, I guess it didn't.
It completely fragments your circadian rhythm and triggers cortisol release. So it leaves you in a state of hyperarousal when you should be recovering.
But people almost aggressively defend their right to sleep with their phones. Like the universal defense is always, well, I need it because it's my alarm clock.
Oh, I hear that all the time.
And the framework solution is almost laughably simple. Buy a $10 standalone alarm clock.
Yes. Just buy a clock.
Yet we resist that simple purchase because the alarm clock excuse is actually a psychological defense mechanism to protect the addiction loop.
It is a total rationalization.
Yeah.
Because if you remove the phone from the bedroom, you have to face your own thoughts before sleep. And that can be really uncomfortable for a brain that is accustomed to constant external stimulation.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. We are talking about keeping the phone out of the bedroom, setting these firm boundaries, but a lot of people are completely tied to their devices for their livelihoods.
Yeah, that's very true.
The sources explicitly detail a distraction profile called work emails around kids. How do you set boundaries when your phone isn't just a dopamine dispenser, but the actual tool you use to pay your mortgage?
It's tough.
It is. The framework suggests utilizing hard tech limits, which is the U in P.A.U.S.E, but that seems incredibly ironic to me. We are essentially deploying software to protect us from software.
I know it sounds ironic, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, it makes perfect logical sense. You are up against algorithms designed to bypass your prefrontal cortex.
Right, the world-class engineer.
Right. Because the engineers built the trap, you must weaponize the operating system's own built-in restrictions against it. Relying on your internal monologue to say, I'm only going to check one work email, that is a failure of digital hygiene.
Because your willpower will fail.
Exactly. Instead, you utilize automation.
So, like, programming your phone to automatically enter a strict downtime mode or a focus mode at 6:00 p.m. every evening?
Yes. You set hard daily app timers that physically lock you out of your email or social applications after a predetermined number of minutes.
Oh, wow. So you just can't get in.
Right. You outsource the discipline to the machine. That way, you don't have to constantly expend your own cognitive load trying to resist the urge. You create a hard digital wall that requires like a cumbersome passcode to bypass.
Which reintroduces that vital friction we talked about.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's assume you've implemented all this. You've planned your physical friction, anchored your zones, utilized the tech limits. The phone is in the hallway, it's in grayscale, and you are locked out of your inbox for the evening.
Sounds peaceful.
Well, yes, but you are suddenly left standing in your living room with a massive void in your routine. Like, what actually goes into that empty space?
And that transition is the most fragile point in the entire framework. This is where we get to the S substitute with analog alternatives.
Right.
Because reaching for your device is rarely about a conscious desire to consume information. It is almost always an unextinguished motor habit loop born out of microboredom.
A motor habit loop.
Yeah. Think about the physical sequence. The hand reaches into the pocket, grasps the device, lifts it, the thumb swipes up.
Oh, yeah, I do that without even looking.
Exactly. That physical sequence has been myelinated into your nervous system through tens of thousands of repetitions. So when you remove the phone, the basal ganglia still fires the sequence. But there's no device there to complete the loop and no chemical payoff at the end.
So it's that jarring feeling of patting your pocket, realizing the phone is in the hallway, and suddenly feeling this wave of restlessness. It's like phantom limb syndrome.
Yes, very much like that.
Your hands literally don't know what to do with themselves, and the brain registers that lack of stimulation as, like, a mild panic.
We call it microboredom because our brains have just lost the tolerance for low stimulus environments. So if you remove the primary pacifier without substituting a replacement activity, that unextinguished habit loop will generate so much agitation that you will eventually relapse. You'll just go fetch the phone.
So you have to actively place tactile alternatives in the physical space where the phone used to be.
Exactly right.
The sources mention having boredom busters actively ready, leaving physical books, magazines, crosswords, or even like a sketchbook on the coffee table, engaging in analog hobbies like cooking, doing a complex puzzle, or fixing things around the house. It's about proprioception, right?
Yes.
Grounding your nervous system back in the physical environment through tactile feedback.
It grounds your attention in a singular sequential task rather than the parallel fragmented processing required by a smartphone. And there is a profound secondary benefit here, particularly for parents.
Oh, what's that?
Well, when a child observes an adult deeply engaged in a crossword puzzle or reading a physical book, they are witnessing a model of sustained attention. They can see the cover of the book, they understand the parameters of the activity, and they see what true focus looks like in real time.
Which is the exact opposite of what they see when we are staring at a screen.
Exactly.
Because to a child, a smartphone isn't a book or a map or a bank. They don't have the theory of mind to understand the utility of what you're actually doing. To them, it is just a glowing rectangle that triggers a sudden, complete withdrawal of their parents' attention.
It just takes you away from them.
Right. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the E in P.A.U.S.E, explaining the why out loud.
Now, this raises an important question about developmental psychology. In child psychology, there's a very famous observation called the still face experiment.
The still face experiment.
Yeah, it's where a parent suddenly stops reacting to a baby and adopts a completely blank expression. The child almost immediately shows signs of severe distress. They try to get the parent's attention, and when they can't, they get really upset. When we get sucked into a smartphone, our faces adopt that exact same flat, unresponsive affect. We think we are just quietly checking a schedule, but the child experiences a sudden emotional wall.
That is deeply unsettling, but it explains so much about why kids act out when we're on our phones. They're just trying to break through that wall.
Exactly.
This is why the framework insists that boundary setting cannot be a silent internal process. You have to narrate your technology use. And the sources provide exact, highly effective scripts for this.
They're so helpful.
Instead of just silently pulling the device out of your pocket, you announce your intention to the room. Like, I am checking the weather for our hike tomorrow, and then I'm putting my phone away. Or, I need to reply to an email from work for 5 minutes, and then it is family time.
And by narrating the action, you are demystifying the object. You're transforming it from an infinite vortex of parental absence into a specific tool being utilized for a highly specific, time-bound task. You give the child the parameters of your absence, which significantly reduces their anxiety.
Right. And the explain a step goes beyond just narrating your intent. It requires narrating your failures, too. The text offers a script for owning your mistakes, and honestly, it requires a lot of humility.
It really does.
If you slip up and your child catches you mindlessly scrolling on the couch, you don't get defensive. You don't pretend you were doing something important. You acknowledge the lapse. The script suggests saying, "You are totally right. I got distracted by my phone. Let me put it on the counter so we can keep talking."
And that is just a masterclass in psychological modeling. You are actively demonstrating to the child that the pull of digital algorithms is incredibly strong, that even adults fall prey to it. But more importantly, you are modeling the agency required to catch the behavior, correct it, and deliberately choose to prioritize the human being sitting in front of you.
Right. You are modeling the hygiene itself.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? If we synthesize this entire framework, planning your friction to disrupt the automatic habit loops, anchoring temporal and spatial boundaries to protect your biology, utilizing tech limits to fight algorithms with automation, substituting with tactile alternatives to soothe the unextinguished motor habits, explaining your actions to protect your family's emotional connection, it all points toward one central theme: intentionality.
Yeah.
We have to start treating our attention like an infinite resource that we can afford to let drain away into a screen.
Yep.
We have to purposefully design our environments to defend it.
And, while these sources focus intensely on the parent-child dynamic and how kids perceive that glowing rectangle, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, one that extends beyond parenting.
Oh, okay.
If the human brain is uniformly vulnerable to these variable reward schedules and dopamine loops, regardless of age, what are the implications for how we interact with the other adults in our lives?
Oh, that is a compelling pivot.
Well, consider your romantic partnerships, your marriages, or your close friendships. Are these adult relationships suffering from the exact same unnarrated screen time?
Oh, definitely.
When you suddenly pull out your phone in the middle of a dinner conversation with your partner, and your face adopts that blank, unresponsive affect, they likely experience a very similar subconscious sting of rejection that a child does. They perceive the same sudden emotional wall.
Wow. Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
Perhaps the simple act of narrating our tech, saying out loud to a spouse, "I'm just going to answer a quick message from my brother. Give me 2 minutes and then I'm fully back with you." Perhaps that could be the missing piece to preserving our adult relationships from the friction of the glowing rectangle.
We assume adults just intuitively understand, right? But silence breeds disconnection no matter how old you are. It all circles back to the core premise. We are performing routine maintenance on our attention so that we can actually offer that attention to the people who matter. You wouldn't expect a machine to run forever without an oil change, and you can't expect your mind to stay grounded without digital hygiene. Build the speed bumps, buy the alarm clock, and start narrating your actions. Your brain and your relationships will thank you. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.